Just a minute.
Yeah.
Very good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of the Department of Commerce, Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Gst Vaishnav College, and the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, I welcome you to the Taxpayers Awareness Lecture Series number 2. This Taxpayer Lecture Series has been formed with the objective of propagating the taxpayer awareness among the public, students, and the taxpayer fraternity at large. May I now request Dr. J. Satish, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, Gst Vaishnav College, to welcome the gathering and introduce the chief guest to the audience. Over to Dr. Satish.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. So I take privilege in welcome you all. So very good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of Commerce and Department of Corporate Secretaryship and the Institute of Cost and Accountants of India, I welcome you all to the Virtual Taxpayer Awareness Lecture Series 2. Today's lecture focuses on taxpayers, services, and e-governance, ease of tax transactions, e-invoicing in GST. We have three eminent resource persons today with us to organize the session for us. One, Sri S. Rajagopalan Sir, IRS, Assistant Director, Directorate General of GST, Southern Zonal Unit, Chennai. And the second speaker is Sri R. Srivatsan, Additional Assistant Commissioner, National Academy for Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, Chennai. And the third speaker is CMA KVN Lavanya, ma'am, Cost Accountant, former Chairperson, Hyderabad, Chapter of Cost Accountants. Our department introduced GST as a part of curriculum in December 2017 semester itself, and we have frequently organizing training, faculty development programs, and lectures on GST. The Department of Commerce has also signed an MOU with the Institute of Cost Accountants of India to offer crash course in GST. And in the past 1 year, we have trained 350 students in GST to empower them to take up taxation and GST as a profession. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Institute and Department has organized the third batch of GST crash course training 46 students, for which Sri Srivatsan Sir was one of the faculties. To introduce the guest for the day, Sri S. Rajagopalan Sir is graduated in Science and Law and has been in service in the department for 3 decades. He has strong career path from being promoted from the entry level to the current post of Assistant Director in DGST in the cadre of IRS. He has been a part of policy decisions and administrative positions at the department and has traveled to many parts of the country during the GST transition process to set the GST motion in. He is a humble, simple, soft-spoken person and with a strong grip over the subject with in-depth analysis on various topics related to taxation and other current affairs. Ardent lover of watching the media, he is inquisitive thirst for the current affairs in India and global as well. On behalf of the college and the institute, I welcome you, sir. Sri R. Srivatsan Sir has been awarded the prestigious President Award in 2019 and he has received the same in New Delhi. In January 2020 for his exemplary services in the core competence area. He has been associated with the department in various positions and been training the young officials and orienting them with requisite skills and knowledge for performance of their duties. He also addresses in various forums and handles lectures in GST in professional institutes and other institutions. He had his schooling from his Avicii school and a government-aided institution, thus proving the excellence that students from government educational institutions can reach with higher name and fame. Graduated from Loyola College, AMI from the Institute of Engineering, Calcutta. He holds a PG diploma in public administration from Anna University, Chennai. He has been trained in financial intelligence and Investigation from IIM Bengaluru. On behalf of the college of the institute, on behalf of the college and the institute, I welcome you once again, sir. We have Madam CMA KVN Lavanya with us as a moderator for the session. CMA Lavanya is a practicing cost accountant from Hyderabad and has served in various capacities in Hyderabad chapter of the cost accountants. She was the chairperson of the chapter. Her educational qualification is from engineering background coupled with cost accountant. She has been addressing the media in vernacular language, Telugu, to reach out to the students and society on the professional areas. She is a well-known motivating speaker and has trained a good number of students on CMA subjects. On behalf of the college and the institute, I welcome you, ma'am. On behalf of the management, principal, staff and students of the Department of Commerce and Corporate Secretaryship and the Institute, I welcome you all the participants of the program. Welcome you all.
Thank you, sir, for your eloquent welcome address. May now request CMA Lavanya ma'am to take over the session.
A very good morning to you all. Our respected Sri S. Gopalanji, AD and DG of GST from the South Zone of Chennai, Sri R. Srivatsanji, okay, from again Nason of Chennai, and our friend Rakesh, Dr. Prem Kumar and Dr. Satish, all from the PG and Research Department of Commerce of Dwaraka Goverdhan College. Participants, students, faculty, a very good morning to you all. Welcome to the second Taxpayers Awareness Session, which is organized by the college. In fact, this is a very good initiative by the college. GST has to be part and parcel of your life. You might ask me why. One being it is an indirect tax, that is, it affects the whole of country. Any decision taken by the GST department, in fact, affects every citizen of the country, right? Suppose there is GST on petrol, then it impacts everybody. Suppose there is GST on roti or chapati, then it affects everybody. So because this is an indirect tax, right? GST affects everybody. Now it's a very welcome step from the college, where we have learned that the college has introduced GST in the semester of December 2017. So a very early decision taken by the college when GST has started, a very good move. In fact, appreciate the college for its move. Now, every commerce student, right, has to know GST. Now, students, please understand that GST is not different, accounting is not different. Accounting has to go simultaneously with GST. Suppose a sale happens, right, and then there is GST on that sale, then how do you record? Suppose there is a purchase that happens, or there is some expenditure that you have booked and there is GST on that, right? Suppose you have paid audit fees along with GST, how do you record it in your books? Suppose you have purchased biscuits from Karachi Bakery, again Karachi Bakery levies GST, how do you book that in your books? So for every single transaction that you have to put in your books, be it a debit or a credit, you should know the basics of GST. Without knowing the basics of GST, you are not called an accountant, right? So that's the importance of GST now. Now, India has witnessed this big oceanic revolution in the year 2017. Now, you must be asking why. And I'm sure because the college has already introduced this course, most of you know why GST has come, because, we had multiple taxes. Levy was, it was not rational, tax on tax. So ultimate burden was on the consumer. So, and there are many reasons why GST has come into place. So once this big revolution has come, we all should be very, strong in our GST basics and accounting basics for this GST, because this will really rule the rules for the next 50 years. Now, central excise has come. It was there for around, 50, 60 or 70 years, right? Similarly, VAT or service tax. So they have been there in the economy for a predominant amount of time. So similarly, GST coming on this, 2017, I'm sure for the next 50 to 70 years or even more, this will be part of one's life unless a second revolution comes again in the indirect taxes, right? Now, you all must be knowing previously, some companies or some businesses have taken the advantage that the VAT department is not talking to central sales tax, or this central sales tax is not talking to service tax, or service tax is not talking to central excise, or all of them are together not talking to a banker, or all of them together not talking to MCA, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, right? So once a balance sheet is prepared, there are multiple places where this balance sheet is submitted, or the numbers of this balance sheet are given to, maybe department or different stakeholders. So some businesses have taken it as a loophole in the Indian law, and they have really triggered, and many scams, many things have run subsequently. So the government thought, let me rationalize, and now the government came up with a beautiful tax structure, which is the GST. My dear friends, when any outsider criticizes GST, please don't be carried by that. Now, it is the most beautiful revolution that had happened to India, the most beautiful tax system that is there, and it is also having the ease of operation using its website. If you see the GST website, you will feel very comfortable. Everything is very transparent there also, right? In fact, we struggle a little when we are working with income tax website. That is true. When you file TDS returns, console file, something else, again, you have to use some other software. The number of software that you use to file income tax return or a TDS return is around 3 to 4, at least 3 to 4 even today. But that's not the case with GST. Once I lose my income tax return, that's the end of it. You have to follow up with the bank, or somehow you have to do a tapas to get back your challan of TDS that you have paid. But that's not the same with GST. Just like how you experience Gmail or Yahoo Mail or some WhatsApp or any kind of website, how easily you work on those websites. Our GST website is built on the same lines, right? It is having that ease of operation, any history you can see, or any number of transactions that you have posted, anything you can easily download. So for that matter, technologically, the department is trying to give us more and more comfort day by day, right? Now, GST is such a act where you need not tell with your mouth what is happening in you, what is your business all about. See, let me give you a small story here. At Chennai IIT, say there are 4 students, right? All the 4 students are toppers. All the 4 are toppers, and tomorrow they have an exam. So they are like, we are toppers, we have studied everything. Our exam is tomorrow. So let us relax today so that we'll write our exam well tomorrow. So they have chosen a place, okay, a hilly area which is close to Chennai. They said, okay, let us take a Zoom car on rent, take a rental car, go there, enjoy the campfire, enjoy the weather, and come back tomorrow morning and take the exam. All of them said, beautiful, excellent, let us go. So they went there, they have enjoyed all that, and they could not return in the night, right? So they overslept, and next day morning they woke up at 9 o'clock. Now the exam is at 9 o'clock. By 9, they have to be in college, but at that location, they woke up at 9 o'clock. So they hurried up, we are missing our exam. Come on, let's go to college. So they started. Immediately, they came to college at 3 o'clock. So exam is over. By the time they reached college, the exam is over. So all of them thought, we all have to tell a story. Let us all prepare one story. What is the story? Now we all went to a hilly place. We wanted to come back yesterday night itself, but the car had given a problem. Being a hilly area, the support mechanism for that repair is lesser. So, we had to push the car all over the hilly terrain, hilly area, and then come back to city. And today it is 3 o'clock. Sir, we are very sorry for missing the exam. So this is the story all 4 have prepared. Okay, the tire got punctured and all that stuff. Super. So when they came back to the college, their sir asked, "Arey bhai, you're all topper students. You all 4 of you did not write the exam. So this is not a good thing, not a good sign. What happened?" Then they told this story. Then the sir said, "Okay, that is fine. No issues about it. But I'll give you an exam paper, okay? Please do write. If you don't write, it doesn't look good because you're all toppers and all 4 of you missing the same exam at the same time, gives some suspicion. So please do write the exam. It's okay, I'll manage. Please write. Then he made them sit in 4 different rooms. Room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4. Excellent. Now the question paper has been given, right? The first question was, what happened yesterday? 98, 2 marks. What is it? What happened yesterday? 2 marks. All of them wrote this answer, what they prepared. The second question was, which tire got punctured? 98 marks. Right? So the first fellow wrote first tire, the second fellow wrote back tire, and the sir knows what has happened when he is correcting the papers. Right? What happened yesterday? 2 marks. Which tire got punctured? 98 marks. The same thing is happening in GST as well. You need not tell what has happened, right? If somebody else's, post their sales or somebody else's post their purchases, it is all seen in your portal. It is all seen in your login. So validation happens very easily. Now the businesses need not think about, producing multiple balance sheets to multiple stakeholders. At least the burden of such businessmen has come down after GST has come, because everything is absolutely transparent. Transparency, the number 1 mark that you have to give is certainly to the GST portal, also the MCA portal, so that many things which the government is in fact trying to take up and ease our lives. So this is act. If you know this, the government checks your transactions based on others' books of accounts, the others' sales, the others' purchases. If you understand this philosophy of GST, I'm sure you will do automatically proper accounting, proper reporting, proper return filing, proper paying. Right, my dear friends? In fact, so let me first talk about the taxpayer services which the GST department has been given to us. Traditionally, including me or including many seniors in the indirect practice, had a perception where, where they felt that the department is very strict. People are not very friendly. They will impose fine, they will impose penalty, they will do that, they will do this and all that stuff. But if you interact with any GST officer, in fact, I was having the pleasure of interacting with Mr. Srivatsan ji and Rajgopalan ji. A very comfort feel, you will feel that they're absolutely your family members. They are in fact walking to every business, trying to know the difficulties that are faced by the businesses and also trying to solve them. Now, what else should I give you a list of taxpayer services which is being given by the department? Believe me, every state or every area, every district has industrial estates that we all know, right? So there's a group of industries, there's a group of factories, companies in a place, predominantly in most of the across India. In fact, the GST department is going to every industrial estate and doing their programs. This is called the outreach program. In fact, I have been a biggest beneficiary of the outreach program, because during my chairmanship at the Hyderabad chapter, we have organized the outreach program. In fact, the department was after us. We were not after the department. The department was, Lavanya, give me a date. We want to come to your chapter. Please pull up all professionals or companies. We want to interact with them. We want to know their difficulties and sort out them. Right? Now, I'm sure in the movie Bahubali, you must have seen, what all villagers say. They say, the king has come to us to live with us. Right? The king has come to us to live along with us. Don't panic that the king is out of his throne. Now he is along with us. That's the happiness people are enjoying. Now, I'm not exaggerating. I have no need to do so. This is the case. In fact, all GST officers, right from the level of inspector or superintendent till the principal commissioner or even higher, are trying to address all kinds of industrial estates, companies, factories, clients, know their requirements and then give solution to them. When we have organized the outreach program, or in fact, when they have organized the outreach program in our premises, we have given them suggestions about the file size that you upload during refund. Suppose you want a refund in the GST for all different reasons, right? You are entitled to a refund. Then you have to submit, say, document 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you scan and upload this document, the file size is limited there. Okay, it is not allowing you to, suppose you have 20 documents to upload, the actual portal was not taking all the 20 documents. So then we said, so this is a technical issue. I genuinely need a refund, but the portal is not allowing to. Then immediately after we have suggested within a week or 10 days, the file size has been increased. Now you can upload almost up to 50 MB of data. Okay, that is one thing where the department has acted immediately. Similarly, the government has given an amnesty scheme, my dear friends. Now, what is this amnesty scheme? Any law has this. Any law gives a deadline for filing or payment or returns or something. If you do that task after the timelines, usually some late fees or interest, something like that applies. The same thing is with income tax, GST or MCA, I mean Companies Act, PF Act. You take any act in the world, it will have some deadlines. If you don't do the task before that deadline, late fees or interest or something else applies. Now, the same thing is also the case with GST. Now, the government has given a series of schemes, amnesty scheme, again, some reduction of interest, reduction of late fees and all that. Ideally, the late fees is 100 rupees per day, 100 rupees of CGST, 100 rupees of SGST. So totally 200 per day is the late fees. Suppose I have not filed my December return. December return is due by 20th of January. So after 20th of January, you have paid it after 10 days. So for 10 days into 200 rupees is the amount of late fees that you have to pay, right? More than the tax. In fact, these late fees and interest are a little hitting in case you have forgotten or you have not filed it in time for different reasons, lack of money, lack of working capital, whatever reasons. Okay, this is actually the case as per the Act. Now, what did the government do? What did the GST department do? It has removed all late fees. It has removed late fees from the birthday of GST. That means from 1st July 2017 onwards, almost till July 2020. That means for 3-year period. Of course, in different sections, this has come, different times of frame this has come. But ultimately, the department means you have not filed something since 3 years. No problem. With a late fees of simply 250 rupees. That's all. 250. You hardly get an idli outside if you go, right, to a hotel. With a late fees of 250 rupees per month. 250 CGST, 250 SGST, hardly 500 rupees per month. You can file all your 3-year returns. Maybe it is 3B or GSTR1. So that is one thing the department has really given us. So somebody who is a late filer or who has initially not filed for all different reasons can use this platform and then file the returns. They have also, also given notification for reduction of late fees. They have reduced the interest. Ideally, interest is 18%, 1.5% per month. Okay. They have also compromised on the interest. The department said, I don't want any interest. I don't want any late fees. Please file your return and be tax compliant. That is all we all want. Right. So this major drive which is taken up by the department. So a very big service that is being done. Next, the department has organized refund drives. Now, we all know COVID has started from the last week of March or so, right? Many businesses were shut down. So businesses were not in a position to book even a rupee of sales. Those working from home had worked from home, but without any sales, for the business and all. So you know what the department said? The department knows that nobody would pay a single rupee of GST, right? If you earn, you will pay. If you bill, you will pay. If nothing is there, what will you pay? So the department thought, let us not trouble people for not filing of returns. Now, what is pending from our end? Refund is pending. So somebody has filed a refund application, maybe for export or SEZ or something like that, or wrong payment of tax. Let us start processing refunds. The government is sitting on a branch which is held by them. That means a work which is in their hands. You believe or not, any refund application that was filed within 3 to 4 days, it got cleared. Money also came back to the client's accounts. It's a beautiful drive. When the whole world is shrinking to spend a rupee of money, right? When our finance minister or the prime minister has been giving, very big packages, some lakhs of crores packages for the whole country and trying to sustain a 3-day meal for migrant workers and all. What did the GST department do? He told, I will process the refunds. Any refund application pending anywhere, come to me, let us process it. So see the speed in their thoughts. So a department which is friendly, a department, I'm really surprised to see every officer that I met in the department is so committed towards revolution, so committed towards transparency, right? They are all like, okay, please give your ARN number. I will process the refund if everything is fine. So that's the speed into which they have started taking refunds. So we all have to be really grateful to the department. And digital India, we all know digital India is a vision, is a dream of great people, including our current honorable Prime Minister. To make digital India, what is that I need to do? I should have everything online, everything transparent. We all love QR codes. We all like when our WhatsApp opens immediately with the QR code and all, right? Now the department said, why don't you create more sense of transparency by e-invoicing? E-invoicing is nothing. It's a very simple technique. You create your invoices yourself at your office in your ERP, but only a QR code will be given for every invoice. Who will give the QR code? Department will give the QR code. That's it. You need not buy any barcode scanner, any QR generator, nothing. All the headache is being taken up by the department. The department is simply saying, let me put a stamp or let me give a legal notation or let me make your invoice a valid document by simply giving a QR code. If you give me the invoice, I will put a QR code on it and give it to you so you can give it to your customer. That is how the department is working today. Please see the level of transparency or the level of vision or the level of dream, revolution that is in the blood of the department. So what more can be a taxpayer service than directly walking into your office, taking your suggestions and putting it there? My dear friends, in fact, there is one clause in the GST Act where it says any goods which are expired, right? You should not take ITC on them. You have to reverse the ITC in case you have taken. Now imagine a supermarket, say Ratnadeep is there or Shoppers Stop is there. No, Shoppers Stop or Ratnadeep is a good example, or Big Bazaar. They have many eatables, right? Say there's a Maggie packet, there is some oats packet or something like that. Every item has a shelf life, right? 3 months or 6 months. So when Ratnadeep procures all these Maggie packets or oats packets, it will automatically take input tax credit on those items. But if you're not able to sell it before the expiry date, automatically what happens? The ITC has to be reversed. It is expired good, and if there is any expired good in your shelf, please reverse the ITC. That is what the Act says. Now, the GST department has given us some platforms like a grievance redressal team. In fact, there is a grievance redressal team in Hyderabad also where my close friends are in the team. In fact, every state, every major center has those grievance redressal teams. In the grievance redressal team, through the team, we have given it to the department. We have represented. We have asked them. During lockdown, almost for 2 to 3 months, most of the retailers are shut. If there is any stock where it is getting expired, the manufacturer, the retailer loses the input tax credit for no reason. The whole world is suffering. So all the more he is not having sales. Now he should also, undo the ITC that he has taken. He has to reverse the ITC that he has already taken. So it is a double whammy for him. So we have represented to the government, to the department, that such clause should not be there. Okay, so that it is easy for businesses to, in fact, again come back to their original positions and start their businesses. Once the business is automatically going fine, if all the sales are fine, they will automatically pay the GST. But for things which are out of their control, so we were in fact requesting the department to also cooperate on this issue. In this way, the department has been very much receptive, very much positive, my dear friends. So be it e-invoicing or any grievance or outreach program or the refund drive and all these are excellent moves taken by the department. So let us hear from the mouth of the horse itself when we have the bigger horse here. So let me sign off with these few words. Thank you, college, for the opportunity. We'll again come back at the question answer session. So I request our Rajgopal sir and also our Srivatsan sir to openly communicate all kinds of ifs and buts during their presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavanya ma'am. Now we'll be having Rajagopalan sir's presentation, followed by Srivatsan sir.
Good morning to all. Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good morning to you all. First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I'll start with the remark that the GST is omnipresent and the next only is to God. And we think the indirect taxes like income taxes are the ones which affect us more. In fact, GST has more impact on the lives of everybody, and in a sense, every citizen of the country is a taxpayer in the sense that the ultimate tax burden of GST is borne by them. We should remember that in our everyday activity, whatever we do, whatever we buy, whatever services we engage, they are all covered under GST, and our payment towards such purchases or engaging of services, etc., have a tax component on that. And after this lecture, if you are going to look into every transaction of yours and identify the tax component involved in that, you will realize that it is indirect taxes which have more impact on everyday life of each citizen. And in fact, each citizen is covered by GST Act, whereas indirect tax covers only a part of the citizens in our country. And Mr. Rakesh Kumar has been very frugal in allotting time to us. It is 30 minutes is not enough to cover this entire topic. I'll try to do justice, and I'll restrain myself to the area where it is for me to inform you about whatever is the information available and supplied by the government in complying with the GST law. And I will just start with a brief introduction to the GST law and how it evolved. Some 35 years back, all the taxpayers were under the strict control of the department, where it was called a physical control, where each and every transaction of the taxpayer was controlled by officers present in the taxpayer's premises. Without the prior approval of the taxpayer, nothing will move. From there, we have moved to self-removal procedure, where the taxpayers on goods were allowed to transact on their own, but to keep records. But the form and the way of maintenance of records were prescribed by the government, and strictly they had to follow them. Then we move to record-based control, where all the records in the format and how it shall be maintained, all that were prescribed by the government, and in that strict format, the taxpayers are required to maintain the records, and from which they shall call out the information for filing of returns. And again, the returns will be assessed by the officers. Now, from there, we have moved to an era where the assessee, that is the taxpayers, are allowed the freedom to maintain their own records, and the department prescribes only certain aspects which shall be present in all those documents. Otherwise, the documents can be designed by the taxpayer according to their needs, according to the accounting packages and all that they use. like that. Now the assessment, previously there was assessment of returns. Now the assessment is primarily self-assessment. Self-assessment means the taxpayer himself will assess what is the tax payable and then pay it. With this brief introduction, I'll get into the main part of our business today. First of all, now all documents are allowed to be maintained in e-form. So naturally, it becomes natural that all such documents maintained shall have sanctity under law. The law shall recognize your
enable பண்ணிட்டீங்களா?
sorry for the interruption. Every e-document has to be recognized by law, and there are legal provisions relating to that. And all online transactions will now be legal transaction under Section 35 of the CGST Act permits maintenance of accounts in e-form and gives it legal sanctity. And Section 66 of the Act provides for a period to which the acts shall be the documents shall be maintained, because it cannot be perennial. So there has to be an upper limit. The upper limit is prescribed 72 months from the date of due date for furnishing of the annual returns for the period in respect of which such records are maintained. And how to maintain the records is given under Rule 56 of CGST rules, which states that the transactions in respect of which the records has to be maintained, the form in which it shall be maintained, and the manner in which it shall be maintained. And it also prescribes that since the documents are maintained in the e-form, and there is every possibility of getting some technical problems, it mandates that every taxpayer shall maintain an electronic backup to ensure that the data is secure, and according to law, it shall be produced to the tax officials on demand at any point of time. Added to that, the tax officials will always have access to all the e-records maintained by the taxpayer. Towards that, this GST is a paradigm shift from the normal tax administration, which requires a lot of change in attitude for compliance also. So since the reforms had been brought in such a massive way, the government was aware of the problems that will be faced by the taxpayers, and they have initiated so many taxpayer-friendly measures. The first one being, they have made a commitment to comply with the IS 15700 2018 standards, as a part of which they have given published a citizen charter through which they have made a commitment to integrity, courtesy, objectivity, transparency, promptness, etc. towards the taxpayers, and what they expect from the taxpayers, and how much of the delivery system will be aligned to the needs of the taxpayers. In furtherance of that, the department has prepared a service quality manual, a manual which lays down the documents and proceedings relating to quality of assurance given by the department. You may be surprised to know that the government is giving the taxpayers an assurance that they will maintain such high standards in giving and delivering service to the public as well as the taxpayer. And there are programs under this commitment. The main one being the SOVOTAM, where a commitment to excellence in service is made, and there are programs conducted by even our nation on this. And it is, the details of the programs and all that is available online. Whatever I'm presenting here is the citizen charter, the service quality manual, the details of SOVOTAM, and everything is available online. On the introduction of GST, there were teething problems that could normally be expected. So, the department published documents what is called E-Flyers. What are these E-Flyers? The E-Flyers are nothing but a compendium of instructions and the position of law relating to a particular subject. The E-Flyers for each and every subject had been issued by the department so that a taxpayer who is interested in a particular area of provision of service or supply of goods, he can go through the e-flyer which is relating to him, and that is a single source which gives you all the details about the legal provisions, the documents to be maintained, and everything. It is, I can even say that it's a ready reckoner for each of the subjects, and there are many e-flyers subjected to many subjects which are available online. And added to that, it is natural that when something new is introduced, so many questions will arise in the minds of stakeholders. The stakeholders are the officials, the taxpayers, and the public. So there's so much of the taxpayers base. So many each one have different questions. So what the department did is whatever be the basic question that will be that will arise out of introduction of GST. So they all listed these questions taken from various sources from the public and taxpayers, and they have published frequently asked questions and answers to that. These are also available, and these are also on separate subjects and heads which are available online. Any person who is interested in a particular area, he can get into the FAQ and they can clear their doubts and they can get lessons qualified, clarified. Apart from that, on YouTube channels, there are tutorials on how to go through the registration, how to file the various returns, how to correct your returns, and all that. There are many tutorials on YouTube channel. You can go through published by the board and the different directorates coming under that, and also our training institute is subject wise. There you can get in and you can get a first-hand experience of how to do it live. This is also available online. As we all know, there is now it is a one nation, one tax. So throughout India, there are many people who do not understand either English or Hindi. So to encourage the people to understand the GST better. For an example, in Tamil Nadu, for the people of the taxpayers of Tamil Nadu, we have published a Tamil lexicon. A lexicon is a dictionary for legal terms. So, in understanding law, the understanding of legal terms is very important. The understanding as per dictionary meaning may not help in the legal transactions. So many of the legal terms relating to the Act is defined generally under Section 2 of the Act, and that definition only will be acceptable as per law. So the Tamil lexicon will provide you a guidance to understand the term which is in English. Likewise, we have so many small and medium enterprises run by normally not that educated entrepreneur. So we have published this MS material in Tamil. It is accessible on site. So much of information is available online as well as printed material and everywhere. But these are all not enough, because we know even during previous regime, the information was available in the form of printed books and all that. But it is not easy to go through to understand them. So for this purpose, the department is conducting so many awareness campaigns. A Manthan is the main one. Manthan is a meaning brainstorm. So there is a site for Manthan which lists out all the programs carried out in the auspices of CBIC throughout India, and the proceedings and what the outcomes, everything is recorded in the site, and you can go through all that. And majority of your doubts and clarifications would have already been clarified in such awareness campaigns. Apart from that, the GST, from the point of view of central government administration, they have got many commission rates. Each commissioner has an office, it's called a Seva Kendra, where the public and the taxpayers have access to the Seva Kendras. Their offices are exclusively posted for engaging with the taxpayer and the public. You can approach them either online or even in person and get all your doubts clarified, and you can also receive some guidance on the procedures to be followed. Like any service provider in the private sector, help desks are also there in Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, as well as their partner in online provision service, the Gstn. And there's a new trend which I started with a decade back, where wherever there is a quantum change in the procedures and the legal provisions relating to GST, prior to introduction of such changes, it will be published in the website, and all stakeholders will be given time to make their suggestions and views on the draft. All such suggestions and views will be considered, and the draft will be suitably modified to accommodate the genuine interest of the taxpayer and the citizens. You may also go into mygov.in website and make your suggestions on matters relating to GST. Apart from that, and you might have seen that at the time of introduction of GST, so many advertisements were given by the department in leading newspapers, explaining what are all the changes, what has changed from the earlier stance, what is the current status and all that. Now, the press release is also done by the board. The press release is important because after the GST Council is the ultimate authority as far as GST is concerned. And after each meeting of the GST Council, the decisions are taken by the Council, and immediately on the very same day, a press release given on the decisions taken by the Council. So we will be updated at the end of each session of the Council. Apart from that, our training center, National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, publishes a weekly update in the site where they discuss about all the changes which have taken place in the week, and they update the site, and they also educate you on the effect of such changes. So you can, if you keep a close watch on these weekly updates, you can be current on any subject. But the latest development in government office is the introduction of E-Office, that is a paperless office which had been introduced 2 months back itself. The aim of this is to do all the processing, office processing of everything under E-Office only. Now there is no question of any physical document except in very rare cases where investigation all that is involved. So right from the receipt state up to the level of disposal of that receipt, everything is done online, and all documents are electronically always available. There is no question of any file being missing or the file being traced, time being wasted on such and all that. The file all the files move online and they are readily available, which will save a lot of processing time. It is also a completely transparent processing where the record cannot be manipulated by anybody. Even in the chain of such processing, right from the bottom up to the top, the records cannot be changed. So in all dates, everything will be recorded, and there won't be any practice of anti-dating or pre-dating, post-dating, and all that. Apart from that, once this E-Office has been introduced, definite deadlines are fixed for disposal of each and every issue and each and every receipt, which will be monitored by the next higher official. So there is no question of any file being delayed or put into back burner. So every file will have to be processed on time and a decision given to them. It is also a taxpayer friendly office because now the processing will be very fast, and the excuses cannot be given by the officers for any delay. We have now covered the positive areas where so much of information is provided by the department for benefit of taxpayers as well as tax officials, which are available there. And every system will not work perfectly, so there may be some hitches here and there. To take care of all this, the government has introduced a central public grievance redress and monitoring system. In short, it's called CP grants. Every public have access to that. If you have any a complaint or any information or lethargic approach of the officers, you can file your complaint in CP gram, and each and every CP gram is monitored by the PMO, and you will definitely get a reply. Apart from that, you can directly make a representation through mygov.in to PMO, and you can make the trade also can make representations. All these representations are numbered and they have to be disposed for sure. And the RTA is a well-known legal provisions has come along at least a decade back. All the offices of GST are covered under RTA, and each office CPIO is nominated, who is responsible for answering all the RTA. But you should remember that RTA relates to only information. It will not offer you any clarification, or it will not explain you any legal position. RTA will give information available to the office. They can make use of it. The next one is document identification number. It's a very revolutionary thing which is happening in the department. whenever there is a correspondence between the department and the trade, all the documents will have a unique identification number, which will have to be generated from a site maintained by the Directorate of Data Management. And each communication shall bear this data identification number in the communication sent to the taxpayers. And you can, as a taxpayer or the public, please look into any correspondence sent from the department. It should have the DIN number. What is the benefit of this DIN number? There cannot be any unauthorized communication with the public, one thing. Second thing is, you can go into the Directorate of Data Management site and you can track the document. What is the disposal and everything you can track. This is a very public friendly measure that is also introduced recently. And apart from that, we are facing some system related issues because everything is online in the compliance with the GST law. That there is a IT grievance committee to which you can make representation on the problems faced due to software issues or hardware networking issues. And a grievance committee on e-way bills. E-way bill has come in a long back. It is a success actually. But there are some areas still there are some problems because the enforcing authorities differ from central to state, from union territory, etc. So sometimes some problems arise. So you can there is an exclusive grievance committee for problems faced in the e-way bill area. So you can make a representation directly to such a grievance committee, which will be attended on priority. And above all, if the taxpayer has any problem with any individual officer or a group of officers whom in their view are not functioning fairly, to ensure such a fairness, the taxpayer or public have freedom to make a complaint to the Vigilance Directorate. It is the Vigilance Directorate's details for each area and the Central Vigilance Director, everything is available in the portal. You can send a direct complaint to such a Vigilance Directorate, but you should remember that you shall give your address and the incident where it happened, etc. Because anonymous petitions won't evoke any response. With that, I have covered the area where the department has given you information on whatever is available readily, which will guide you in complying with the GST law. The major partner, because every transaction is online, the department has engaged services of Gstn to provide the software and the hardware support for online transactions. So what are the responsibilities of Gstn? I will just rush through it because time is running away. They design the application development and the continuous operation also made by them. But this taxpayer migration now is not that relevant because that need is already gone. And they maintain the infrastructure from the stage of procurement to commission and the maintenance also. And they also ensure the security of the data. There are two things about it. There is so much of data collected by the department, and it has to be stored by on a very big scale. And there should be protection against loss of data due to any disaster. And they have designed this data recovery mechanism they are maintaining. And any problem with, relating to GST and also, they have some help desk for helping you out in respect of problems relating to GST, and where on raising of a complaint, a ticket is raised and it will be closed. The ticket has to be closed after taking action. The Gstn also is conducting training and capacity building not only for officers. Please remember that they are also conducting training and capacity building for taxpayers and stakeholders. You can join such a training and get yourself updated. The last two items, back in system for 27 states, all that is not relevant to taxpayers. It is a service provided to the each state government and the union government and union territory government. For providing this service, GST engages several software development agencies who develop software for them, and the GST integrates such software and provide the software system to the department. To act as a bridge between GSTN and the taxpayers, the GSTN have recognized so many GST service providers. They act as application program interface users. What they do is they do service to the taxpayers and they give a connect to the GSTN main portal. And the GSTN is also providing free accounting and billing software. A list of such software providers is available in the GSTN portal itself, which provides free accounting and billing software. It is mainly focused towards the MSME sector because the bigger taxpayers, they normally have their customized software system or ERP, such systems. But to help out small and medium enterprises, they are providing free accounting and billing software. There are some options because there are a list of such software providers. How to connect to GSTN? You can connect to GSTN through desktop browsers. The custom applications are adopted by each taxpayer through accounting packages, the ERP systems. Even mobile apps. Through mobile apps, you can connect to GSTN because even some returns can be filed through. For an example, nil returns can be filed through mobile phone itself. And apart from all that, all the above mentioned applications and provisions allow you to do it online, but there is a facility for working offline and then uploading the data to the GSTN site. These are all the projects already conceived and made operational by GSTN for CBIC. E-Way Bill has been a success. E Invoice has been introduced in a very limited way, on which Mr. Srivasan will be elaborating. And GSTN is providing taxpayer trainings, and all the forms prescribed under GST are available with the GST in the soft form. You can straight away download it and use it. This tax information system, though it is a service done to the government agencies, it will be helpful when the taxpayer is facing problems when the goods are in transit or any other problem relating to credit or availment of credit and all that later on, because this information is shared by the among the states and center. The verification of genuinity of any claim or right to input will be easy. And the ultimate customers are the one customers who consume either a service or the goods, like us normal citizens, are the ones who bear the burden of all the GST tax. So the government has initiated a program to encourage such customers to get goods or services only under invoices, so that all such goods and services are properly accounted and the tax is paid under that. To encourage such invoices, there is a facility to upload invoice in the GSTN site. Now they are working on it. That's not operational, I think, so far, but shortly it will be coming. you can upload the invoices, which will be recognized by the system, and there will be a lucky draw later on held by Gstn. If you are lucky, so you will end up getting cash rewards. So far, there are several modules in GST. So far, these three modules, like say registration, filing of all returns, refunds and payments of tax, have been made completely online, and they are very successfully running. And you shall remember one thing: this the refund are a very sensitive one. The refund is the money of the taxpayer available with the department, and it has to be refunded as quickly as possible so that the cash flow problem is not faced by the taxpayer. And you shall appreciate one fact that there are clear timelines prescribed for giving refunds, and they are all brought into the law itself so that no official has any discretion to delay it, the refunds. So the refund should be given on time, whereas the government is allowing the taxpayer to take credit even before a tax is paid by the supplier on such invoice. The government has become such tax friendly. All these facts we shall understand. What is the road ahead for this online services? Now, audit is involves an element of physical visit, though it is based on uh, documents, and it will be made 100% operational in the future. Likewise, in any law enforcing department, there will be disputes where the question of resolution of dispute from the stage of adjudication, appeal, second stage appeal, until it goes to the ultimate apex court. Such a dispute resolution areas will have to be made online, so that every document will be can be made available before the resolution authorities in e-form itself. It is very easy. Then in GST, though assessment is a word not used in the same sense in income tax, GST uses the term scrutiny. Scrutiny is the taxpayer files his return based on his own assessment of tax to be paid, and his own assessment of credit available with him for payment of such a tax, and he decides on the cash component of the tax. So such scrutiny will also be made online in future, and it may, like income tax, go faceless also. And there is a provision of advance ruling in GST. A new business who starts necessarily has to take into account their liability to tax and the impact of such a tax on their business, for which they on their own, going through all the law and legal advice, may not be in a position to ascertain the exact impact of GST on them. So there is a provision of advance ruling. The GST taxpayers can approach the department advance ruling authority and ask clarification regarding anything related to classification of goods, rate of duty, and what is the tax payable, everything. And this ruling given by the advance ruling authority is a legally binding document. But this has to be made online. With this, I have come to the concluding part of my presentation. I hope that the presentation would have been useful to all the participants as well as the education institution which is taking part in that. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you, sir. It was a wonderful, a detailed, in-depth presentation on the taxpayer services. So I think it is already, no, we are running short of time. So we'll have Srivasthan sir to present this session, and then we will take up the questions. Over to Srivasthan
Yes.
sir.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think it was a wonderful 30 minutes that Rajagopalan sir gave. In fact, the initiative was taken by the government. In fact, is not known to the public. So much effort has been put by the government in the interest of stakeholders as well as taxpayers, which in fact goes without the knowledge. So I think it was a wonderful effort by him. Right. Without wasting much of my time, because as Mr. Rakesh said that I have only about 30 minutes time. I will try to share my screen with the presentation that I have prepared on this e-invoicing. Sir, is the screen visible now? If somebody can confirm, then I will proceed with my presentation. Yes, I think the screen is visible now. Okay, so what I will be talking to you today is about the relevance of e-invoicing, what it is all about, and how it has panned out over this period of about 15-20 days since it was introduced. First, I would like to give a small introduction about what was the precursor for having this e-invoicing. We all know that there was a procedure called e-way bill, which was introduced about 1.5-2 years back, April 2018. In fact, the e-way bill is a document that is generated electronically, which captures the movement of goods. On the same lines or on a similar lines, we have now brought in a scheme called E-Invoicing, which in fact captures all the information about the taxable supplies that a particular registered person in fact undertakes. All the taxable supplies per se are not in fact captured to begin with. At the infancy stage, they have fixed certain category of person who are mandatorily expected to generate this e-way bill so that the information across the supply chain is being captured. It does not imply that the generation of this e-invoicing per se means that all the invoices shall be generated only by the government GST portal. It is only to generate an invoice reference number with reference to each of the invoices, in fact, that is provided to the system, which in fact identifies the invoices, generates a unique number, and then gives it back to the taxpayer, so that that invoice reference number will be a unique identification number for every verification on real-time basis subsequently, either by the supplier or by the recipient of such supply or by the tax officer themselves. So this invoice registration portal shall generate an unique invoice reference number with reference to every invoice that is in fact generated or shared with the invoice reference portal. What benefit it gives? In fact, it automates multi-purpose reporting with one-time input, so that all other areas with reference to the legislative compliances are auto-populated, so that repeated input of information is not required. It shall be a one-time input, so that all the returns get auto-populated with reference to that invoice once this is done. And e-invoicing, it has been programmed in such a way that they have created 10 dedicated URLs for that. e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. Similarly, from 1 to 10 URLs are there, so that this will facilitate management of traffic in a better way. In fact, these are some of the lessons that we learned while we started implementing e-way bill process. All the glitches that we found while rolling out this e-way bill has been taken over, and ever since this e-invoicing has been put into use, we have been seamlessly generating lot of e-invoices, and the traffic management in fact has been better. The next point is that every e-invoice will be impregnated with a dynamic QR code, and this dynamic QR code will be embedded with a lot of information that is required for verification, validation, authentication, etc. What are the information that are part of the QR code? I'll be explaining a little later. All the information that is required to ensure that the tax compliance has been properly done, all such critical vital information will be embedded as part of this QR code. And just to give you a brief introduction about the international scenario, India is not the first country to implement this e-way bill concept. In fact, it was long before introduced in South Korea. It was introduced in Brazil and Canada, which are also two countries across the globe which follow our type of GST legislation, that is dual levy. And some countries like Mexico, Sweden, Turkey, Peru, Poland, Spain are also following this e-way bill mechanism in a full and complete way, unlike how we have started now. In fact, it has been told that Latin American countries like Brazil, Chile, etc., Peru, etc., are all way ahead in this e-invoicing scheme than European countries, which generally are the forerunners in taxation reforms. As far as Asia is concerned, Singapore was the first Asian country to introduce this e-invoicing scheme, and in fact, as far as Asia Pacific region is concerned, countries like Indonesia also are following this e-invoicing pattern. Not all countries follow the same schema. In fact, different countries follow different criteria of threshold limits to enforce this e-invoicing scheme. Some countries follow value-based threshold limits, like once you cross a particular threshold limit, the e-invoicing becomes mandatory. Some countries use it on volume basis. The quantity of documents that you generate will decide whether you will have to do an e-invoicing or not. And some countries do it on the type of transaction, whether it is from business to business or business to government, or if it is through an e-commerce operator, or so on and so forth. So these are some of the criteria which these countries follow to put in place this e-invoicing scheme. As far as India is concerned, once it was decided that we also shall have an e-invoicing scheme, we had put in all these best practices as part of our schema. In fact, we have started on 1st of October 2020, where three very important conditions have been imposed. One is that every taxpayer whose aggregate turnover in any of the preceding 3 financial years has exceeded more than 500 crores, it shall be mandatory for him to generate e-way bill, generate this e-invoicing. So initially it was only the preceding financial year, but the latest amendment says that in any of the 3 financial years preceding 2021, if a taxpayer has exceeded a turnover of 500 crore, then he shall mandatorily generate an e-invoice for every transaction. Not all transactions, for specified transactions, it has also been specified that e-invoicing shall be only for, as on date, only for transaction from a registered person to another registered person, that is B2B transaction, or from a registered person to a government transaction, B2G transaction, reverse charge mechanism, in which case a compulsory self-invoice will have to be made, that also shall be an e-invoice. All exports and deemed exports are covered, and any transaction that is done to an SEZ, which also is almost like an export, is also covered. So all these areas, more than 500 crore turnover, B2B, B2G, RCM, exports, deemed exports, and also supplies to SEZ, all these transactions shall be mandatorily covered by this e-invoicing scheme. Who are exempted, or what are the exceptions? Any transaction that is done on account of imports, there is no requirement to generate an e-invoice. Similarly, any transaction done by an SEZ unit, supplies made by an SEZ unit or a developer of SEZ unit or a free trade warehousing zone, banking, financial and insurance service providers, non-banking financial companies which provide financial and insurance services, then goods transport agency exclusively involved in passenger transportation services, and also sale of movie tickets. In such situations, an invoice, even if the company is more than 500 crores, in such situations, there is no requirement for generation of e-way bill, even if the transaction is from B2B or B2G or in case even if it is more than 500 crores threshold limit. The other very important condition is, as the situation stands now, B2C transactions are not allowed to be entered as part of the e-invoicing mechanism. It is only B2B transactions which are now allowed. Even if a company wants to voluntarily generate an e-invoice with reference to a B2C transaction, that is from a business to an unregistered person, even if he wants to voluntarily issue an e-invoice, it is not possible as on date. Maybe it is a way forward. What are the types of documents that can be reported in invoice reference portal? Invoices issued by the supplier, or maybe invoice issued by the seller, credit notes, debit notes, or any other document that is to be prescribed by the government. As on date, all invoices are covered, all credit notes are covered, and all debit notes are covered as part of this e-invoicing scheme. What are the various methods by which this e-invoice can be generated? 5 very important facilitation has been done. In fact, Gstn has provided an offline utility tool for generating this e-invoice, which means that you can download this offline utility tool, use it to populate the invoices, and then convert it into a JSON file and then submit it to the invoice reference portal IRP. And this invoice reference portal will generate an invoice reference number for each of the invoices that has been uploaded in the system and then send it back to the taxpayer. So this is an offline utility tool that has been created. This e-invoice can be generated using the facilities of GST Suvidha providers. There are about 78 to 80 Suvidha providers recognized by GSTN. So one can take the help of these GST Suvidha providers who will be helping their clients to generate this invoice reference number through e-invoice mechanism. The third very important aspect is, if a company is engaged in a very large quantum of documents, even per day, then there is a possibility of direct integration of their ERP system with the e-invoicing portal. There can be a direct interface between them through an application program interface. So whenever an invoice is generated by the ERP system, correspondingly there will be an invoice reference number generated instantly by the invoice IRP, that is invoice reference portal. Or credentials can be taken from e-way bill also, but one will have to understand that e-way bill will have to be generated not only for reasons of supply but for reasons other than supply also. So whenever there is a transaction from B2B or B2G and involves supply, then from the e-way bill data also one can opt to generate this invoice reference number through e-invoicing scheme. Or the rudimentary method of online filing information, that can also be done. You have to simply go into the IRP portal, that is invoice reference portal, where you can upload the invoice data and then get the invoice reference number. So these are 5 very important methods that has been provided by the GSTN so that one can generate the invoice reference number. So I think this itself will show the fact that generation of invoice reference number will in fact not be a compliance burden, but it will be very seamless. And as I told you, all the difficulties that we faced while introducing this e-way bill mechanism in fact has been overcome when this e-invoicing schema was launched from 1st of October 2020. Unlike this e-way bill mechanism, where e-way bill can be generated by the person who causes movement of goods, who can be a supplier, who can be a recipient, or he can also be a transporter, e-invoice can be generated only by the supplier, or if the supply is through an e-commerce operator, then e-commerce operator can also generate a e-invoice. So this is one distinction between e-way bill and then e-invoicing, where the recipient and the transporter will have absolutely no role with reference to generating an e-invoice and obtaining an invoice reference number. So how one will have to do it? An IRN request will have to be made by the supplier or by the seller to the e-invoicing system, and then e-invoicing system will process the information. There are some mandatory fields which will have to be filled in. If all those mandatory fields are filled, then the system will validate the invoice and then issue an invoice reference number. And there is also an option, if an e-way bill will have to be generated, you can use the same data to generate an e-way bill also. There, if requested, the system will generate an e-way bill also, and then sign the e-invoice digitally, and also generate a dynamic QR code which is embedded with a lot of critical information that are required for verification. So this is, in simple language, this is how the system works. A request has to be made to the e-invoicing system. The e-invoicing system will verify the mandatory fields and the core information will be validated, and then an IRN number will be issued, and if required, an e-way bill will also be concurrently generated in case it is involving supply of goods, or in case it is involving movement of goods. Then a digitally signed invoice will be generated, and a dynamic QR code will also be generated, which can be used for scanning all the information that is required. So in simple terms, this is how the entire system works. But the workflow is like this. I think it is a little bit too heavy for us to discuss this in this short period of time. Because of the paucity of time, I'm not going into the details of the workflow of the e-invoice, but the simple aspect is that the information shall be uploaded as a JSON format. The e-invoice register will validate the information, then generate an IRN, and then it will be given a unique invoice reference number. It is a 64-digit invoice reference number, and then the system will in fact send the IRN back to the taxpayer, and concurrently it will also auto-populate the GSTR1, that is the statement of outward supplies, and also GSTR2A, which will be useful for the recipient of supply to take a validated input tax credit. So the buyer can also concurrently view the ITC related invoice in his GSTR2A. So this is in simple how the workflow in fact of e-invoice actually happens. Some of the important points which I would like to give with reference to this e-invoicing is that all invoice will be digitally signed by the invoice reference portal after validation of all the information, and the data will remain for 24 hours. The very important point that one will have to understand is, in case the e-invoice generated if there is a mistake or it requires to be cancelled, this act has to be done within 24 hours of generating this e-invoice. Beyond 24 hours, e-invoice cannot be cancelled. But in case you want to cancel the invoice, the original invoice itself, then it has to be manually cancelled before the returns are filed, which in fact is what we normally do. So this cancellation after 24 hours of an e-invoicing has to be done manually in the GST portal, and then before the returns for that particular month are filed. Or in case you are not able to cancel the invoice within 24 hours, like you realize that this invoice requires to be cancelled after 24 hours, I think probably the best way to do it is by issuance of a credit note, which probably could also complicate the accounting transaction between the supplier and the buyer, because the buyer may not be in a position to accept the credit note, so it might create a little bit of complications there. But once invoice has been registered, once this invoice reference number has been generated, after it is registered and validated, it will be uploaded into the relevant GST returns and also GSTR1 and GSTR2A. So this is how the scheme happens, and this information about this invoice reference number will be available in the dashboard of the taxpayer for the entire financial year. So whatever is the invoice reference number generated in the month of April shall remain in the portal for the taxpayer's view in their dashboard for one financial year. So he can always recollect, take the information from the portal at any point of time. So it will in fact enable him to download the information and also reconcile with his books of accounts whenever and wherever. So essentially how this e-invoice will look like, you can see here there is a QR code that is there. QR code is embedded with very critical information, as I told you, like seller details, buyer details, document numbers, these invoice numbers, shipping address, dispatch address, and the type of transaction, then the description of the goods or description of the services, and also the it will hold about 1,000 line items. So this is absolutely enormous 1,000 line items. In fact, a huge advantage. Then the transaction value, then the tax paid, payment terms, whether it is export or the type of transaction, whether it is an intrastate or interstate, all these information will be captured, and such information will be embedded in the QR code, which will be available on with a normal QR scanner. Also, this information can be retrieved. This IRN, as I told you, is a 64-character hash value, and every invoice will have a unique 64 digit or 64 character hash value. So it shall remain, and its unique identity will be retained. The advantages of e-invoicing: it is a one-time reporting of all B2B invoices. It reduces the reporting in multiple formats. See, once this e-invoice is generated, as I told you, it auto-populates GSTR1, it auto-populates GSTR2A consequently, it also auto-populates GSTR3B, it also auto-populates e-waybill if required, if an option is given. So all these reporting compliances have come down. The data form for GSTR1 can always be kept ready, because let me tell you that GSTR1 form will not only contain the B2B transactions or B2G transactions, but also will contain information for which there is no mandatory requirement for issuance of e-invoice is there. But wherever the invoice information have been captured through this e-invoicing scheme, that data will be already ready to upload it in GSTR1 any point of time. And obviously e-waybill can also be generated easily. There is a minimum need for data reconciliation with books and returns, because once e-invoicing is generated, it auto-populates all the returns, and such information can be easily reconciled because you already have metadata for verification with the books of accounts, and reconciliation or aspect also will become very easy. And in fact, e-invoice is a real-time tracker of the invoices both by the supplier and receiver. As I already told you in the previous slide, the information will be can be seen by the recipient of supply also. So he can on real-time track whether an invoice has been issued by his supplier after supplying goods or before supplying goods. So he can always track, and he can be ready to receive the input tax credit along with the goods or services. And the greatest advantage is that it will be a validated ITC, because once this e-invoice is generated, I told you that it auto-populates GSTR1 and consequently auto-populates GSTR2A, which means that the entire validity about this payment of tax in terms of the conditions that section 16 in fact imposes to make one eligible to take credit will be completely validated, and a pure credit will be available for the recipient of supply. So all the problems with reference to ITC about the applicability, eligibility, and availability of ITC credit can be resolved once an e-invoice is generated. So e-invoice also helps us in better management and automation of return filing process. Then obviously, because everything is automated, it disincentivizes tax evasion. So there will be a reduction of tax frauds, because for two reasons. There is no incentive for tax evasion anymore, because every information is transparently available, and that too on real-time basis, which can be checked by the supplier, by the recipient, by the tax officer. So all the stakeholders in the ecosystem will be aware of how the transaction happens on real-time basis. So obviously it disincentivizes evasion, so we can always manage and control tax frauds in a better way. And it is expected that this scheme will eliminate fake GST invoices. See, at present, one of the biggest headache that the department is facing is without supply of goods or services, invoices are being supplied, invoices are being provided. So this is precisely what fake invoice is all about. A lot of investigations is going on with reference to this generation of fake invoices. But once this e-invoice completes cognizance, I think probably we will eliminate. See, that is our ultimate goal or aim. The entire fake GST invoice mechanism will have to be eliminated, because in fact it is one of the deterrent factors which in fact does not allow the legislation to progress successfully. So the ultimate aim or goal of this e-invoicing is to eliminate this fake invoice ultimately on a final basis. There are some myths and realities. So some myths are still prevalent. So what I thought was I will give you very important myths that is associated with this e-invoicing scheme. The first myth is that there is a need to issue invoices through GST portal. Absolutely not. GST portal does not generate the invoice per se. The original invoice shall be generated by the taxpayer in their own ERP system, and they can continue the process as they are doing now. Once they finally decide about the invoice, then that invoice information can be provided to the IRP portal, that is invoice reference portal, which will generate an IRN for that particular invoice and then send it back to the taxpayer. So there is absolutely no necessity for anybody to worry about that. Invoice system as it is being generated now in their own legacy ERP system will continue to be generated. It is only the invoice reference number which is being given by the Gstn portal. Generation of IRN might take several minutes. No, again, it is a 100% myth, because the testing actually confirms that the generation of IRN is sub-milliseconds, which means that by wink of an eye, the IRN will be generated. It will not take several minutes as being misconceived. There is need to be issued for all transactions e-invoicing as on date as the law stands now. There is absolutely no necessity for issuance of invoices for all transactions. It shall be only generated by those registered persons whose aggregate turnover has exceeded 500 crores in any of the 3 financial years, and only for B2B transactions, B2G transactions, that is business to government transactions, exports, then supplies to SEZs and also deemed exports. So only these areas are actually now covered. So there is no need to issue e-invoice for all transactions. We'll add one more GST compliance burden. This again is a myth, because once this e-invoice is generated, as I told you, it auto-populates all other returns, which means that the data need not be re-entered, which in fact the greatest advantage is that there is absolutely no scope for manual errors that occurs due to multiplicity of data feed. So once a data is fed properly at one particular point, all other required compliance obligations are taken care by this. So it is not an additional compliance obligation, but it is an additional facility that the government has provided by way of this e-invoicing system. IRN generated by IRP would be the invoice number. Again, it is not, it is only an invoice reference number. The invoice number will be the one that is generated by the taxpayer and not by the government portal. And then required to make major changes in their billing software, ERP or accounting software. Again, it is absolutely wrong. There is no major change required as far as accounting software is concerned. A small change at the back end for integration and to have a proper interface with the government portal is the only thing that is required. And most of the software developers, accounting software developers, have understood this requirement. Absolutely what is required at the back end, they have already aware of that, and a small tweak in the software so that the interface is seamless. The legacy accounting software will automatically integrate with the government portal, and then the invoice reference number can be exchanged in a very easy manner. There is absolutely no requirement for changing the billing software or ERP. And there is a common schema of invoice for different business transactions. There were a lot of apprehensions whether this particular vertical or this particular sector or this particular goods or services, whether different IRP will be generated, whether different types of invoices will have to be generated. No, the answer is that there is a common invoice generation schema for all types of transactions. See, the invoice can be whatever format, whatever form that that is suitable or convenient for that type of business, but it is only some important core information that is required, which has been described in the invoice schema. If that information is available, then there is absolutely no necessity to change your pattern of invoices. Invoices can continue as it is at present. And for small MSMEs and for small industries, free billing and accounting software has been provided by Gstn. especially for taxpayers whose aggregate turnover is less than 1.5 crore. This can be used for issuing e-invoices. This is another facilitation scheme that the government has brought in, especially having in mind the disadvantages that an MSME or a small taxpayer is going to face because of this compliance obligation, because it is not a burden, it is a compliance obligation which will ultimately help in ease of doing business. What stakeholders have to do now? Nothing much. They have to identify all the possible transactions that are attracting e-invoicing, then update their masters and master of their vendors and customers so that they sync with the requirement of e-invoicing. Then flagging vendors into small and large categories so that large categories are auto-populated and small categories are manually entered. And then the accounting software will have to be slightly tweaked and customized to ensure that they have proper interface with the government portal. This in fact will be done by the vendor of the software who is aware of that. They have already been educated about this, what has to be done to ensure that the interface with the government portal is seamless. And then small changes in the return preparation process. Maybe the first time you can decide how the return filing process will have to be done. Generally, all B2B transactions can be auto-populated, while B2C supplies can be manually uploaded. So these are some of the very, very small changes that are required to be done. But once these e-invoice is generated through this portal, I think most of the compliance obligations will come down, so that because the data will already be available for us to upload in different forms and formats. This is how the portal will look like. You have a help module also there, where a lot of user manuals are there, video educations are there, FAQs for various subjects, both legal, technical, procedural, all the aspects FAQs are there. And then a few presentations are also there, which will help us to have a better understanding of the entire schema. And then a lot of tools are also available there, offline utility tool, how to convert your Excel into a JSON file, or how to convert your JSON Excel file or a CSV file. For that, and also free software for small and medium industries are also available, which can be used for generating this e-invoice. Finally, what is the way forward? I think the next way forward as far as this e-invoicing is concerned is that it shall be taken across all taxable supplies, including B2C transaction, and that is how globally it is happening. So we will be taking it in the next installment of that. So the next step forward is to cover the entire gambit of transactions without threshold limits. Like now we have it only for those whose turnover is more than 500 crore. Probably we'll cut that and trim it to maybe 100 crores and then bring it ultimately to all types of transactions once the system stabilizes. And then auto population of once these two things happens, which means that every type of transaction is covered and every type of assessee is covered. If both are done, then probably we can go ahead and have auto population of all returns without having a need to file each form separately. The system itself will generate the returns that are required to be filed on periodical basis. Probably we will end up the generation of an annual return also based on the data that is being provided, and that will help the taxpayers in reducing their compliance burden. Finally, a dynamic QR code capture will be there. Now it is only the core data that is being captured, while the dynamic QR code ultimately will capture a full gamut of data. Full entire data will be available for both the taxpayer as well as for the tax officer, so that the reconciliation work way for. Unless there is an absolute cooperation from the taxpayers, the department also proceed further. We have been inviting a lot of suggestions. We have a lot of suggestions also. There are so many difficulties that were faced, like the problem of not able to capture TDS, and the problem that some of the taxpayers are finding that this 24-hour time limit for cancellation of invoice is too small a slot, because after that a credit note will have to be issued, which the supplier may be doing, but the recipient may not agree. So all these are some of the difficulties that are there, which has already been brought and highlighted to the concerned authorities, and they are working on it. Probably all those difficulties faced by the field formations will come down once this is stabilized. So this is essentially what I wanted to speak to you about this e-invoicing. So I think I have taken about 5-10 minutes extra, but still I think all the information with reference to e-invoice I have shared with you. Now I will unshare this screen, and then we will go and have the question answer session, please. Over to you, Mr. Rakesh. I am stop sharing my PPT.
Sir, thank you for your eloquent and a very detailed and a knowledgeable resource today. I request Lavanya ma'am to handle the Q&A session and wrap up.
Thank you, Srivatsan sir, and also special thanks to our Rajgopalan ji. In fact, the intent of transparency and responsibility is in fact seen across your presentations. And in fact, I'm myself very much surprised to see the list of things the department has been doing, maybe in terms of flyers, YouTube channels, or even various kinds of press release and all these weekly updates and all that. Thank you so much for in fact enlightening all the members over here. And I also thanks to Srivatsan sir for having given in detail about how e-invoicing works and the myths that people traditionally have about e-invoicing and all. So I think we have some questions today from participants, sir. One question that has come up is, while some countries of the world are following a single rate of taxation, why in India are we unable to do so? Why do you have different kinds of rates? From Dr. P. Satyanarayan, sir. I think either of you can take up and answer this question.
The question is for Rajagopalan or?
Any of you, sir.
Okay. We all know that the country is so diversified, and an introduction of GST itself is a very big achievement. If you view from the fact that we have a central government, we have a state government, and we have to pull in all the powers of the central government as well as the state government, and give it to the GST Council to be the apex body for GST. This itself is a big achievement. It itself took some 15 to 20 years to achieve. With so much of political diversity, that is one point. The second is, not every sector can be used, can be treated equally. For an example, somebody drives a Benz car, and you buy your own fridge. This cannot be treated as equal. This is as simple as that. And we have got different state of society where whatever is essential for normal living, they have to be taxed at a lower level. Whatever is considered to be luxury and the balance of average income in India, whatever is felt as a luxury good, they have to be naturally taxed at a higher rate. And we are collecting such higher rate of tax only from the people who can afford it. And we have so much of poor people in our country, and it has to be policy based. And added to that, this is a point which had been discussed threadbare in the media and even in print media. And it is agreed by everybody that it's not possible to have a uniform rate. As long as there are different strata of society is there, different economic strata are there, it will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is another question. Is there any possibility of more GST on insurance and food sector? I think this is the something asking for impossible, but please you answer it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir, I will take this question. See, the decision to impose tax on a particular sector or particular goods or particular services is a conscious decision that has been taken after an extensive research. See, there is a organization which the Gstn has taken support of, the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, which in fact did an extensive research to identify which area should be taxed at what rate. right? So it has been a well-researched aspect. So insurance on health and life sector, as it stands now, we probably, I think they may not get relief. Hotel industry definitely will not get relief. But obviously, you should understand that the health sector per se has been exempted from payment of GST. So any health related issues, if you go to the hospital and if any services are received based on the prescription by a doctor, though they don't attract GST.
Thank you, sir. So there's one more question. The question is from Mr. Balaji. He says individuals are ready to pay GST as fixed by the government. Is there any mechanism to identify whether the purchaser or seller who is collecting the GST had promptly paid and paid it to the government?
Yes, I leave this question to Srivasan because it has a direct bearing on this e-invoicing.
Yes.
He will be in a better position to explain.
Yes, I will answer this question. See, there are two people who are involved in this, right? So it is always said that honesty or discipline cannot be taught, it has to be caught, first of all, right? So, and it takes two hands to clap, right? So it has to come from the seller as well as the buyer to ensure that whatever is collected from the seller by the buyer will have to be deposited to the government. It is his one of very important obligation on the part of the taxable person. See, the government in fact has made him as a trustee of the government revenue, so it has to be done. So that is the primary reasoning. The government also has gone into the voluntary compliance mechanism right from 1996 when we switched over from departmental based assessment to self-assessment basis. From 1st of September 1997, we have switched over. This is precisely because that it is one of the way forward that we should start trusting the taxpayers, but at the same time, the trust cannot be blind. We always follow the principle called trust but verify, right? So verify will in fact be a post-mortem probably, but the first and foremost thing is to trust, because that is one recognition that we give for the honest taxpayers. That is point number one. So the responsibility is not only with the tax officials, but also with the stakeholders to ensure that they do a transaction with a genuine person and also don't encourage transaction with fictitious business entities.
Thank you, sir. So again, another question from the same person, Mr. Balaji. As like a GSTIN, there should be a special number, like maybe a GSTPN, or GST taxpayer number, where the payer can proudly say that so much amount had been paid towards GST from his income without claiming ITC. Again, for you to answer.
What is the status is a request? I am not able to understand it. But first of all, I would say it is the taxpayer. Is he talking about individuals? That is like you and me.
Yes, appears he's talking about individuals.
It just think about the data of all the citizens, and every day each citizen is involving himself in at least 2 to 3 GST involved transactions. So it covers the entire population. If you look at the amount of data, and even for the individual, it will be difficult to maintain. Even if, as an individual, if you ask me today how much GST I have paid, how much of a GST burden I have taken on myself, it is very, very difficult and it is an impossible task. Apart from that, nobody, due to freedom, they want to enjoy. Nobody wants to be tracked by the government. It is a free society. It will create political problems. It's not possible, but for an individual to make his own calculation claiming it is welcome always.
Sir, I would like to add a little bit from where you left here. See, you cannot compare. I think probably he wants this recognition from the fact that income tax department gives you a certificate online when somebody is complying with filing of tax in time and payment of tax in time. See, obviously we should understand the fact that income tax law is a direct law as well, direct taxes, while GST is an indirect tax. So whenever somebody bears the incidence of tax per se by himself, it becomes a direct tax and therefore a recognition can be given to him directly. Whereas a taxpayer here, in fact, doesn't bear the incidence of tax. The tax is borne by the person who actually consumes the goods ultimately under GST. So it is not a benevolence that he has to expect from the government. It is his duty. We all have these constitutional obligations. We all speak about fundamental rights that are provided by the Constitution, but we also should remember the fact that there are some fundamental obligations that are also being provided by the Constitution, which we very conveniently forget, right? So being a trustee of the government money, it is his bounden duty to deposit with the government and cannot retain it back. So maybe way forward, this can incentivize people who are paying tax in time, but it is his duty to do so. And obviously, there is no quid pro quo also in this.
Sir, I have a question myself, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The GST logins of most of the taxpayers who are less than 1.5 crores, they have that accounting package there, as you said. In fact, out of the 8 or 10 accounting packages, we have been using Zoho books for a few of our clients. Now, your intent is to help the MSMEs or small players, with a platform where they can easily file the GST returns. So my only suggestion is that when you're already, intending to give a ERP, why don't you put it as a full-fledged ERP? Please also include payroll. Please also include other aspects of general ERPs, so that that will be a full-fledged platform for us. Or else, see, it is again duplication of effort. I have to maintain all my GSTs here, GST transactions in the this ERP what is given by the department, and I have one more software or one more Excel sheet or one more platform where I duplicate efforts and maintain a part there. So when you are going with a very positive intent of really uplifting the MSMEs, your cause is very noble. So why don't you put a little more effort and also give us that payroll thing there, payroll and all additional reconciliation, all such small kind of items there, so that the taxpayer, and I think 1.5 crores is too small amount, sir. You have to raise it to 10 crores. Then people will, confidently use it, sir, without any hassle free. They know once their accounts is done, GST is done. They know once the GST is done, accounts is also done. So they need not, meddle with two types of records and that stuff. A suggestion that probably you can take up and see that additional features of general ERP are also added, so that confidently I use one ERP which is very transparently used by the department and the taxpayer himself. And I think that we have one last question. I think the question talks about how are the indirect taxes used? What is the responsibility of the government after collecting these taxes, and what are the welfare measures done by the department? I think the Right to Information Act comes here. I'm not sure. Anyway, let us ask the uh, speakers here, esteemed speakers here. After this, we'll have the vote of thanks. This is the last question, my dear friends, for the session today.
As far as GST is concerned, the function of a corporate entity is very limited. It simply collects the tax from the receiver of the supplier, be it a business or be it a ultimate customer. And it deposits the government. There is no transaction involving any profit or loss or anything. In fact, the government indirectly has delegated some powers to this business, the power to collect the tax from ultimate receiver of services from them, ultimate receiver of supplies from them. They simply do the tax. In fact, for compliance, they may be incurring some cost. And because of collecting it from the receivers and paying it to the government, there is no business activity here. And we cannot attach some more compliance cost to the corporate sector, which is already saying that there is a huge compliance cost to that. And the concept of this social corporate responsibility is not there in GST.
Madam, I would also like to add to what Sir said here. I think we have to go back to the fundamentals and try to understand the definition of tax, right? So tax is a compulsory payment to be made by every citizen of this country, and there is no quid pro quo. I think I have answered his question.
Thank you, sir. In fact, it was a very lively and interactive session. Thank you so much for giving us all an opportunity to, listen to you all. So may I now request Mr. Prem Kumar to propose the vote of thanks of this session.
Yes, ma'am. Can everyone hear my voice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can anyone answer? Yes, sir. I consider it as a great privilege to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have witnessed it as a memorable and a successful event. There was an excellent presentation by the entire resource person on the topic taxpayers awareness, which is the need of the hour for every Indian. It must be our deep sense of appreciation for CMA KVN Lavanya, cost accountant, and explaining the overview of GST, the recent changes, and e-invoicing. I also wish to express my gratitude to thanks Sri S. Rajagopalan, IRS AD DGGST, Southern Zonal Unit, Chennai, spoke excellently about taxpayer services in GST portal, self-services portal, and other taxpayers e-governance services in GST. I also would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Sri R. Srivatsan, Additional Assistant Commissioner in ACIN, Chennai, gave excellent coverage on e-invoicing in GST. Further, we are very much grateful to the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and its President CMA Bishwaroop Basu and Vice President CMA P. Raju Iyer in taking an initiative for conducting such a wonderful event. Our heartfelt thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. S. Santosh Babu, in permitting to conduct such an excellent event. I offer sincere thanks to Dr. J. Jayashankar, Head PG and Research Department of Commerce, Shift 1. Dr. Prabha Rajagopalan, Head Department of Corporate Secretaryship, Shift 1, and Shri Sheshadrinathan, Head PG and Research Department of Commerce, Shift 2, for conducting such a wonderful event. We express our gratitude to Dr. Satish, J. Satish, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, Shift 1, for introducing our speakers. Our special thanks to Mr. CMA, Rakesh Shankar Ravi Shankar, for his tireless arranging his excellent event. Last but not the least, I thank our student coordinator, Mr. R. Roshin, studying in third year BCom General, for showing enormous amount of interest and providing all kinds of technical support for conducting this program. Finally, I thank all the attendees on behalf of PG Research Department of Commerce and Department of Corporate Secretaryship, DG Vaishnav College. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.